Good evening. This is Ryan Ellis covering a special news bulletin tonight. Tonight we will go back to the events that all began in late 2010 when major flying airline Qantas, after previous circumstances leading up to the event, began on 29th of October 2011. Qantas CEO Alan Joyce announced in a press conference that Qantas would be grounding its entire fleet effective immediately. Tonight we will be going behind the scenes and what events occurred leading up to this major decision called by the Qantas CEO. This all began in late 2010 when parties and organisations were bargaining with Qantas for new enterprise agreements. Everything had appeared to be running smoothly with the agreements until around the middle of 2011 when the parties involved underwent intense bargaining with Qantas, requesting better working conditions and raises in wages as well. Over the 9 months leading up to the decision in October, over 200 meetings were held in relation to the industrial bargaining, which proved to damage Qantas with flight schedules costing them around $68 million. Leading up to October, 3 parties were all bargaining with Qantas requesting changes within the corporation, including job security and increase in wages. In relation to the pilots who work for Qantas, the Australian and International Pilots Association were requesting for all Qantas codeshare pilots, including Jetstar pilots, to be paid the same as Qantas. The AIPA thought that this needed change because Jetstar pilots are being paid nearly 50% less than Qantas pilots are earning. The Australian Licensed Aircraft Engineers Association was also involved in the dispute, fighting for pay rises and job security for engineers working with Qantas. The party was asking for a 3% increase per annum and allowances over 2 years for all engineers. The third party that was involved was the Transport Workers Union, who was fighting for the ground staff who work with Qantas and are fighting for job security. They requested a 5% wage increase per annum claimed, which was negotiable. Industrial relations covers the obligation and entitlements between employers and their employees. This is legislated through the Fair Work Act 2009, which deals with employment issues with them promoting productive and cooperative workplace relations, and make sure that this is provided with national workplace laws. They cover such issues such as pay rates and pay equity, entitlements to leave, and trading hours for businesses. These issues, which formed from the parties, became one of the major issues that occurred during this period and is in relation to the wages and job reshuffling for aviation staff, engineers, custom officers, and luggage workers who work for Qantas. It got to a point that workers would cease working for multiple hours and also threatened to strike against Qantas. Luggage staff had stopped working for 2 hours and custom officers stopped working for 4 hours, due to the parties not coming to an agreement with Qantas about wage increases for the workers. This was also a similar scenario with the engineers, who stopped work and threatening to strike against Qantas. The parties were legally allowed to do this for their workers. This was allowed under Section 174 of the Industrial Relations Act 1999. On October 29th, when Alan Joyce had announced the grounding of all domestic and international flights, it was said that at 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Domestic Time, that 64 aircraft would be flying at that current time, including 36 domestic flights and 28 international. These flights were carrying more than 7,000 passengers in total. Qantas had offered hotel accommodation and alternative flights for passengers who were grounded mid-journey, and refunds or ticket transfers were offered for people whose flights were cancelled. On the 31st of October, Fair Work Australia ordered that all industrial action that was taken by Qantas and all the trade unions be immediately terminated. This was under Section 424 of the Fair Work Act 2009. The Australian government had the option to use its powers under Section 431 of the Fair Work Act 2009, which allowed a minister to have the power to terminate industrial action. Qantas had done what they could to provide customers with alternative airfares and accommodation. Other airlines such as Virgin Airlines offered cheap airfare tickets and announced more seats for flights to cater for Qantas passengers who were grounded. The cancellations of all the flights was in conjunction to the lockout with Qantas, so under the Fair Work Act 2009 it was legal on Qantas's behalf. The dispute developed to become quite expensive on Qantas's behalf. It also cost Qantas up to 5,000 jobs due to the major reshuffle that CEO Alan Joyce had announced in a press conference. The entire dispute alone cost Qantas around $70 million for the time that all Qantas aircraft were grounded. Alan Joyce had said that it would have cost around $15 million for every week the grounding dragged on. This was all due to the announcement to move some of the company's business overseas, which would require the employment of jobs overseas and leave workers back in Australia left redundant. This was on the 11th of August that the reshuffle and overseas investment was announced. This was one of the contributing factors as to why the party started to fight for the workers in Australia who were in danger of losing their job. This dispute between Qantas and the various parties proved that the industrial relation laws that are currently in use are effective and shouldn't be changed. This was shown when the laws were appropriately used to make sure that the dispute didn't get out of hand, resulting in either federal court cases or mass loss in jobs. During the time that the parties were having discussions with Qantas had announced plans to launch a new airline in Asia. At the same time that this was announced, Qantas had said that there would be 1,000 job cuts as well. This was another issue that proved to be concerning for Qantas was the effect on the economy and how the entire dispute affected the economy both within Australia and globally as well. This was during the period of recovery from the GFC and when the Australian dollar and oil prices were high, thus applying pressure to Qantas's costs. As a result, if Qantas allowed the request for employees' pay rise to go ahead, having all the pilots having equal pay and working conditions would result in Qantas having to make drastic changes in the way things are currently run. They would be inclined to increase airfare prices to cater for wage increases for the Qantas Group pilots. This would also potentially risk the jobs of other Qantas pilots, making them redundant due to not being able to afford to keep them. Other factors relating to the world economy that were affected due to the Qantas dispute include a big loss in money for Qantas, job losses, and damage in reputation. Qantas had said that after the industrial action taken by the three labour unions, it had cost the corporation $194 million. Qantas had also told the Australian Stock Exchange that the corporation's before-tax profit was expected to fall between $140 million and $190 million. From all of this dispute, Qantas will also experience a loss in respect and pride towards the company. People will not want to fly with Qantas due to people thinking that they aren't reliable or trustworthy. This combined with the job losses and reshuffle of the business wasn't a great period of time for Qantas. Qantas in 2011 experienced a major plummet in shares in the financial market, loss in profit, job cuts and reputation loss. So basically nothing went right for Qantas during 2011 and 2012. The only thing that was going well for Qantas was the almost double net profit after the 2010 financial year. The next year after all the dispute, it dropped. Since the dispute, which damaged Qantas quite heavily, they have since recovered and gone back to making a high net profit, and they are slowly gaining reputation again by rebuilding the organisation. All we know for sure is that Qantas won't be thinking about doing another costly reshuffle anytime soon. Thanks for watching our special presentation on the 2011 Qantas dispute. Good night.